question I was going to ask is whether there's a European shamanism. It seems shamanism is such a popular word these days. I mean, what a career choice, eh? Don't we all want that one? Sounds like a doddle. The thing is, if there was a European shamanism, it probably wasn't called shamanism, or even shamanism, because we're European. But it was probably called, I don't even know if, the name Wicca, which is W-I-C-C-E, was an Anglo-Saxon term. Previous to that, we know that the Romans called the indigenous priests and healers druids for the Celtic countries, and there was a mix. That's my cat. I'll come back in a minute. But shamanism seems to be a very popular concept since the great shamanic revival of my youth. I blame music and clubbing and Terence McKenna. So there's a real popular upsurge in shamanism. Of course, there was core shamanism. And much has been written about that from the 1980s onwards, I would say. So we are the shamanic generation. But if we had a spirituality, it would not be based on shamanic principles as we know them, or even as they traditionally are. Now, what we know them as and what they traditionally are has met quite a lot of argument on forums, and there's a strong notion that, what people call shamanism has a wide birth from traditional lineages and traditional initiations passed on from elders to students. So we know shamanism mainly as an Eastern Siberian Mongolian practice, but we could argue that some of the Norse witchcraft, sedir practice, has many shamanic overtones. I would also argue that much of European religion, early religion, pagan religion, pre-Christian religion, had similar animistic outlooks as shamanism, but to hang the name shamanism on it is misdirecting a lot of spiritual seekers, really, away from, it's putting a plastic coat hanger on things, isn't it? Hang your personality on that, which is a bit of a shame, because there's a rich tapestry of European tradition already. Obviously this was revived not that long ago, to be honest, so much of what we call Wicca and witchcraft these days is only 100, maybe 200 years old in its revival mode. But we can look to fairy tales, we can look to folklore, and we can see a much older tradition that we can read into this. So we have much imagery surrounding the witch, which has later been Christianized, but she is the old wise woman. And in shamanism itself, in Mongolia and in Siberia, the first shamans were female, and they were called udagans, not shamans at all. And they're not shamankas either. So traditionally they're called udagans. And it was something that a female would take on the role in a village. Now, the role of shamanism, arguably, is to be the healer and to connect the spirit world with the social world of the village or of a people or of a tribe. And I suppose the proof of the pudding is in eating, as they say. Your test of shamanism is really whether you're actually doing the thing you say you can do. Now, we have developed shamanism into some basic steps, a basic model of working with the spirits by taking the underground journey or the journey of flight with a power animal. It's usually a place in nature, it's usually somewhere that actually exists in nature, and it usually begins with a descent into the lower world before trying to rise into any upper world journeys. So this is usually taken by taking an entrance in a tree or in a cave, which is often a real place, and journeying into the soul of the land. Now, as we know from European mythology, the soul of the land is often spoken about, especially in Irish mythology, and the Tooth of Danann, and fairy folk there, and also by entering the Hollow Hills in Celtic lore and Celtic myth. But then in Shamanic lore we also have the stories of, say, Old Mother Hulda, which are Grimm's fairy tales, where usually a girl, not often a man, but often, you can find stories of males taking the underworld journey, but very often it's a female, and she falls down the well, or she travels down the well into the underworld, which in Germanic mythology is the world of death. Now, shamanism is the journey through death to initiation into another way of being. So this is a common theme. I'm going to stop for a sip of my coffee, or tea actually, because I've got milk. So I'm having a very healthy peppermint and licorice. And there she meets the old witch. Now, the old witch is Mother Hulda in many fairy tales, and she is the underworld goddess, the chthonic goddess. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Who is dark, primal, associated with death and with life, and also with fertility. Now, many stories have depicted the witch as being evil. We could argue that's a later Christian slant onto a sacred role as the woman, as the priestess, as the healer, as the midwife of the village. That's another cat at my door. Back. But often the old woman is the initiator. She is the catalyst of transformation. Through meeting the old woman or the old wise man, some kind of change of state is achieved. Some kind of rescue takes place. The hero or heroine may have to rescue themselves even, or they are rescued by the witch. So symbolically, meeting this archetype, as Jung would call it, or Freud would call it, would be the change of state from one place to another with greater understanding that would be brought back to the world at the end of the adventure. such as in the story of Vasilisa, who has to go and bring a burning brand, back from the forest, from the Baba Yaga's house. And she goes and meets the Baba Yaga, and she is helped by her doll, her shamanic doll, that her mother gives her. And the Baba Yaga charges her with tasks, and the tasks are accomplished by the magical doll while Vasilisa sleeps. So there is a lot of shamanic overtone in this, and of course Russia and Siberia, there's this much between them. And so the doll itself is the shamanic doll, the Ongon, the dwelling house of the spirit, and the spirit being helps Vasilisa while she sleeps to complete the tasks. Now there's a great key in that, and it's very similar to many shamanic ideas of spirit helpers and spirit vessels, which are honoured and fed, and so at the end of meeting Baba Yaga, the Baba Yaga of the underworld or of the forest or of the unknown, she brings back the burning brand to relight her fire, or her family's fire, which has gone out, in a burning skull. Now the burning skull could be seen as symbolic of the ancestors, and the fire as symbolic of the wisdom of the ancestors that she brings back to the tribe, to her family, to keep their flame aglow, as it were. So I would argue there is a European shamanism, but it's very different to shamanism as we understand it in the 21st century, which is very different to shamanism as it is practised in Siberia and Mongolia and places like that. So I wouldn't put labels on it, and I would avoid trying to find yourself the populist label because you need to fit the socks. I think you lose a lot of your integrity when you start doing that. So to look to the original meaning, the original intent of our cultural past, we do not need to claim shamanism because we want to hold workshops and charge £1,000, because it sounds like easy work and it's money in the bank. I'm not saying that's what everyone is doing, but I know even myself, I've thought, this shamanism sounds good, doesn't it? Hey, look what they're charging. I wouldn't want to go down that road. I think I would lose a little bit of my inner integrity. And a shaman themselves would not charge somebody for healing. They may receive a gift, they may ask for an exchange of energy, just to keep the flow on a balanced, give and take of energy. That was badly explained. In the runes, which is a part of this Norse tradition, there is the rune Gifu, and the idea of Gifu is that a gift demands a gift. So I think that's fair enough. I'm not saying let's criticise everyone who's ever charged for healing, because we live in a world where we have to pay bills and we have to keep roofs over our heads. But as I say again, European shamanism, witchcraft, Wicca, Norse spirituality, Seder has a lot more right to call itself shamanic in many ways, because there was a very close connection, especially up in Finland with the Sami. They have a very shamanic path. But whether Europeans had a shamanism no, we didn't have a shamanism. Many people didn't have a shamanism because the word wasn't invented, really, well, coined popularly, until about 100 years ago or something. I'm not sure of the exact date. Yes, there are many similarities. Yes, we have common roots. Yes, we have an understanding of animism. But to try and hang one hook on another, one tag on another, I don't think is necessary, and detracts from the rich heritage we already have. So I just wanted to say that quickly. Sorry about the webcam. I've got to buy a memory card, and I just thought I'd do a quick off-the-cuff video. So that's my cat now attacking my door, so I'll cut it short. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you would like and subscribe, that would be great. If you have any questions, please ask them, and thank you for listening. Speak to you soon. Bye. I just had an afterthought as I was watching that. We are our ancestors, and we have an ancestral memory, I do believe. So when we're trying to explore these different things that are speaking to us, we are remembering the way that people would work in the past, and understanding that we have lost in the modern world, that we are trying to find again. So when we're searching for shamanism, I think we're trying to find a more archaic mentality, a more archaic consciousness, which is why we're led to these things. It is a memory, and it is a cultural memory, and I've looked into my DNA. I've got a bit of everything, and I don't imagine I'm very different to anyone else. So all of those ancestors, I've got Native American ancestors. What I'm doing with those, I do not know. Well, I do actually. I've found that out. I've got Swedish, quite a lot of Swedish. I've got Finnish, Germanic, Celtic, Italian, French. It's all in there, and we are all connected. And so when we are searching for these things, I do believe it is our ancestors calling to us to try and find out about our cultural heritage, to try and find a path that is more in resonance with their own, with how we came to be here. And so there is a lot of validity in searching for shamanism as we understand it. But shamanism as we understand it these days is not exactly how our ancestors would have worked with it. So look to your own cultural heritage, and if you're drawn to it, then I think the likelihood is that your ancestors are in there speaking to you and reminding you of some history that they went through, and maybe they do say your ancestors call you to shamanism. I'm going to stop saying shamanism. I'm not that posh. Shamanism. So go with it, but be aware that as Europeans, we would not have worked exactly as Mongolians would have. There is a lot of Siberian in European DNA. I've got some. It comes through the Hun as well. So the Hun came all across Europe. So there's a lot of people who have that DNA, so work with that as well. But try and find the true culture, and try and differentiate between which cultures would work in which ways, and then find your own path, because we evolve, and we are humanity evolving, and that's all fine too. Okay, so I thought I'd just add that. Right, thank you.